So what's coming out right now is that we now, according to the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, they now report that Lieutenant Allan was shot 11 times. And just remember, this is an officer who was rushing to help someone, blindsided by bullets, never thinking that he was going to be attacked and killed. And so the prosecutor's office now giving us more information that the lieutenant was shot 11 times and that the suspect was shot by an off-duty officer at least 3 times. Now, the reason that there is no court hearing today is because Jason Brown remains at a local hospital. He is receiving medical care, and so now that hearing has been moved to Thursday at 1 o'clock, where Jason Brown is expected to make his initial court appearance here in Indianapolis.
Absolutely, and we're getting some new information about how the chain of events right after the accident came up, and we're finding out that a nurse actually was the first person who came up to the car initially, before Lieutenant Allan even came up, to try and offer aid, and we know at that point the person inside Jason became...
The words used are agitated, belligerent, and began cursing. Now, yesterday, an officer described him in the paperwork released as hysterical. So again, we're just getting more details as to what witnesses are now saying based on what is now another official court document. That witness describing Jason Brown, who was really hanging upside down. He was being held by a seatbelt when that car ended up on its roof. We're learning that there was another, not learning because we knew this already, there was a 20-year-old friend that he was driving with, and that friend was told police that for some reason Brown decided to just start speeding up as they were heading towards the city's south side, and that's when the car went airborne. And the friend tells police that he has no understanding why Brown just sped up at that moment in time, but obviously led to the accident, which then led to that vehicle ending up on its roof there on the 66600 block of Madison. And that's when, of course, police around 2:40 in the afternoon on Thursday received a call that, hey, there's a car upside down, and we think the people inside need help. What happens? A good Samaritan, a nurse, nothing new. People rush to the aid of what they believe to be an accident. It is an accident. This officer, again, totally ambushed, blindsided by the person inside. One of the witnesses now reporting that they saw, according to the witness, that Jason Brown pulled out a gun from his backside. It's the weapon believed to be used in the murder.
Death. And that one witness says here specifically...
Why don't you read that, because that helps out.
This witness was at the driver's door, who happens to be a nurse, and saw the suspect keep trying to reach for something behind his back and observed a pistol come out. That's when the witness said he heard someone say a gun, but didn't know who said that. He said that he and another female nurse who came to round up ran to a white pickup truck, so they ran away. It was at that point that Lieutenant Allan was inside the vehicle on the rear passenger side trying to offer assistance, and that's when that shooting started. And we're learning also a little bit more. We had preliminarily the pistol that he used, but the number of rounds that were inside of it, he had 20 rounds inside.
Well, there was a magazine. The magazine could hold up to 20 rounds, and according to the court documents, that magazine was empty. So we know that, at least based on the new information, that at least 11 rounds were shot at Officer Lieutenant Allan. So we don't know whether that magazine was full at the time, but obviously it had enough bullets in to obviously cause death and cause harm there on Thursday. We should also point out that we're also getting more information about the injuries to the suspect. We're told that he was shot at least 3 times. He was shot in the cheek, in the clavicle, the collarbone, as well as the left arm. He is currently at a local hospital here in Indianapolis. He has been undergoing treatment since Thursday. Again, there was a hearing scheduled for about 1 o'clock this afternoon. It's 1:30, 1:26 now. We were supposed to be in court today, but of course that was delayed because he is still getting medical care until he can go to court and hear the charge against him officially. This is a process now, and we see all of you having many comments to say. We obviously can't weigh in on your thoughts. We know that this is a very raw situation, and so those we can't make editorial comments, even though we may have them, right? So we may want to say things, we may agree with you, but we may disagree with you. We're not going to go down that road, but this is a very highly emotional issue, and so now there's a process, and Brown will now hear the charges against him on Thursday. He will get an attorney, or he will hire an attorney, and based on our reporting in the past, when an officer has been killed in the line of duty, he's looking at two serious charges, either the death penalty or life in prison without parole, which is what happened to Major Davis who was the last person to kill an officer in the line of duty. That officer was an IMPD officer, and so Major Davis is now, of course, serving life in prison without parole. That's what we're looking at legally, right?
And we're getting a lot of questions about that passenger. Now, we've determined not to identify that person. He's not being charged with a crime right now, but police do interview him, and in these new court documents, we're seeing some details about what happened there. And that passenger says he was picked up at the Country Club Apartments, and they stopped at a gas station. Eventually, after driving, they were driving south on Madison, and that's when Jason Brown began driving at a high rate of speed for an unknown reason. Now, this comes again from the interview that police did with that passenger sometime after the incident. It says Brown began maneuvering around vehicles and struck the curb on South Madison, and that's when the car flipped and landed upside down. Now, that passenger exited the vehicle and went to Brown until assistance arrived. This is again what he's saying, and then walked to the north side of the vehicle to speak with an officer. That's when the witness, or that passenger, was speaking to the officer. The shots were fired. The witness did say that Jason Brown had a known handgun permit and did carry a semi-automatic gun, and he was known to do that. But
and we know that on social media, many of you are asking because you've seen an Instagram account where Jason Brown is holding a number of weapons, right? And many people are asking, why aren't you showing that? Why are you sugarcoating the story? Why aren't you doing more to show the suspect? Well, let me just share with you, because unfortunately we just can't post anything contrary to some belief. Some things do have a legal requirement, and that picture in particular, we wish we could show it to you. We wish that we could post it on every newscast, but due to the Instagram account, it was a private picture, and because of all the copyright infringements, we can't show it to you. So the difficulty we're having as a newsroom, as members of this community, where we would hope to show you as much as possible, that while you may be able to post it on your own, and you may take that risk as a news organization, legally we can't post that picture. But we are aware of that picture and many others. Yeah. Other folks are also asking about a mugshot. Well, because he's in the hospital, he has not been transferred over to the APC, the Arrestee Processing Center in Indianapolis. There is a room, there is a jail cell waiting for him at the Marion County Jail based on what we've been able to report. But because he's not left the hospital, we don't have his official mugshot.
Yeah, and some people have questioned about the charge he had for a marijuana charge back a number of years ago. And I know both of us tried to get that mugshot yesterday, and that was in Hendricks County. Hendricks County says due to a computer problem, they don't have that mugshot. I think they described they changed systems during the time he was in custody, so some of that is not there. So we'd like to show you that too, but we don't have it, and neither does the Hendricks County Sheriff at this point.
And so, Jenny Jones, we appreciate what you're saying. Jenny Jones says, I've posted the picture on her site. You can look at it on her site. So, Jenny, you can do that. You want to go to Jenny Jones' site and see the picture we're talking about. It does provide possibly some context, as anything that we do publicly on social media may do, but we can't show that picture because of copyright infringement. Some of you are also asking not only about the mugshot in Danville. Again, that picture, we've asked for it. They just couldn't find it. And I have to say that if they had it, they would show it. Police are not trying to hide mugshots from us. In any of these cases that we've done in the past, if someone has a record that's a public record, they're always more than happy to comply unless it gets in the way of the investigation. Of course, preliminary this is sort of now the official charging document. What we're going to do as well, we're going to post this document. It's about
4 pages.
4 pages. You will notice when you read it, right? So when we post this, you'll notice that there'll be a lot of initials on there. For example, things are redacted. There's an HL. What else can I show you here? An MS is someone known to law enforcement. Now, everyone that is redacted, they're redacted because these folks are now witnesses to what could be a death penalty case or a life in prison without parole case. Now things get serious. Of course, beyond, it's serious enough that we lost an officer in the line of duty, but then the second phase, that second parallel track is that someone is now facing a very serious charge, and that person does have due process. And so you're often going to hear us explain the man accused of killing Lieutenant Aaron Allan, because until that jury says that he is the guy, we have to use those terminologies, because he does have, whether you agree with it or not, right, and that's for you to decide as the viewer, he does have constitutional rights moving forward, and those will begin Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Now, and there's some questions on there. When do toxicology results come back? And that can take a number of weeks. We see in months. Just for them to search for all those drugs. I mean, many people think those rapid drug tests, but they are not as quick or as accurate. So they really are looking for the most accurate test possible in a situation like this, because the prosecutor wants to know, and it will be definitely used as evidence in a case against him at the time. So a lot of that will take many more months to even get, and we may not even see it before the trial. There's a lot of information that we do know right now, but there's a lot of information that we don't know. We don't know some specifics about the investigation, and that's because police keep that really close to the vest until it comes to a point where they can release it in trial. They don't want any part of the evidence, any part of the case to be released or spun anyway once it gets out into the public that may not be ready for trial. So the prosecutor, Terry Curry, here really takes that seriously and making sure that nothing gets leaked. There's not a lot of information that exists out in the public until we get to go to trial.
I do want to respond to this comment. This is from Alex Howard, who says, "We wish we could vilify this guy, but we can't." And let me just say this, at least from our end, I know that sometimes these stories are difficult because this still remains a developing situation. We don't know Jason Brown. We didn't know him last week. But what we do know is that he has himself involved in a situation which is very serious. And so you at home have a lot of questions, and we're trying to figure out, why was this guy in this situation? Who is this guy? And so we're going to try to find as much as possible in the public record to share with you. Now, some things you may think are not necessary. Some things you may think. That's for you to decide. And so we're going to do the best we can, and we have. And a lot of folks have sort of asked us, why don't you talk about his criminal record? The reality is that in this case, there were some minor traffic infractions, and then he did serve in Danville about 30 days at the county jail on a drug charge. Beyond that, in Indiana, at this point, that's all we have.
Yeah.
Now, could there be more? I don't know. If there is, we'll find it. But at this point, that's all we have, so we really can't go beyond what we know. But I could assure you, as we continue to look for more information, if there's something out there, we'll report it, because I think people want to know what was going on. The biggest question to this story is simply the why. These were folks, the nurse, right, an off-duty officer, Lieutenant Allan, who rushed to the scene of an accident. How often do we cover stories about good Samaritans doing the right thing, not only in our state, in our city, but our country, but even around the world, who just want to help people? And in this case, we just don't know why he did what he did.
Yeah, and I think that's talking to some police as well. People, that's really the question police have at this point as well, is why? Because if you look at this person on paper, it doesn't seem like something they would ever do. So what happened? And I think that's going to be the big question. And it may be something that we never know. And Raphael, we know from covering many cases at this point that we don't ever really know the reason why, or we will never know, because only Jason Brown, the suspect in this case, knows why. And it depends if he decides to share that in trial or not.
Janelle Hamilton McMahon, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, she says, so now no public recorded, mugshots lost? Yeah, right. Well, I have to tell you that because here's a reality, whether we like it or not. Since we're making all these transitions from just regular photos now to digital photos, we're all, even in this newsroom, where we're trying to get things on computers, things do get lost. I'm not about to vilify or to say that law enforcement lost a picture in this case. I can assure you, based on my years of reporting, when someone is accused of killing a police officer, police provide the information legally if they can. No one hides a public record when someone's accused of killing an officer. So I would not be so quick to suggest that someone is hiding a picture. In this case, I believe that because of the transition from the old way to the new way, a picture was lost. If that picture existed, it would have been on within a second of us knowing the person's name. So I just want to make sure we at least are balanced in that regard, because we've been looking for pictures and just...
We really have. I mean, and that's the Hendricks County Sheriff's Office. We've talked to them. Both Raphael and I were on the phone at multiple different times yesterday and asked them for this. And they searched the old system. They searched the new system. And they said they wish they could give it to us. They just don't have it. So that's just the reality here. And as Raphael said, as things continue to transition from the print time, I mean, we have tapes downstairs, tons of tapes that have to make it into the digital computer somehow. And sometimes those are lost in just how things happen from an analog days to more of a digital day. So
we want to thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Those of you joining us on the conversation, we appreciate your commentary. We hope that you'll continue to ask us questions and make sure that we do a good job in making sure that we ask the right questions. This is a very difficult story at this level because we do want to make sure that we are responsible. At the same time, we are covering a very highly emotional situation. It's been a tough week in Indianapolis, and I'm not talking about for us, but for the families of IMPD who lost Deputy Chief James Waters. His visitation is private viewing will be here
right now.
Here at 2 o'clock, and then public can view his body at 3. His funeral is tomorrow at Banker's Life. The IMPD family mourning that loss, and then of course then on Friday the Southport family and the family of Lieutenant Allan and his family. Those folks will also go through that process. So a long week.
And it was a long week last week. I mean, Thursday, the news of Deputy Chief Waters' passing had just literally come out during, I think, 10 minutes prior to an officer down call coming out on the radio. So it was really a difficult time for police all around as they heard that news and then heard everything else.
I see Sheila Woods is asking this question. Was it fact or fake news that prior to the accident, a couple of guys were seen jumping out of the vehicle and started knocking on doors? Sheila, at this point, what we know at this point, there were only 2 people in that vehicle. A 20-year-old who was the passenger who was picked up at the Country Club Apartments. He was able to get out of the vehicle when that car turned over. If someone was knocking on the doors, it could have been people asking for help. At this point, there is no indication whatsoever that there were more people in that vehicle. There were only 2. It's possible that what people were seeing, since that is a residential neighborhood, is people knocking on doors saying, hey, there's a car over there, can you call 911? I don't want to get ahead of myself because I don't know that to be the case, but I'm just going to, based on just knowing those kinds of chaotic scenes, at this point, law enforcement is only putting 2 people in that vehicle, no more than 2.
And it's important to remember that passenger was questioned by police. He's interviewed here in the probable cause, but he is not a suspect. He was only a witness. Police have released him. He is not being considered in these charges at all at this point. So he was not involved in the shooting. He just happened to be there.
And so we're also getting questions, so why aren't you saying his name? Why aren't you tracking him down? I've tried to reach out to the 20-year-old, and so we're just trying to be somewhat sensitive, right? He was not responsible at this point. He was questioned and released, so he's not a suspect. So you have to be very careful because you demanded at home and we demanded internally to get it right. So we don't want to put him in a position where he is sort of put together with this guy if he had nothing to do with it. And at this point, he was questioned and released. So we're trying to figure out if he wants to even talk. Yeah. If he talks, he could disclose his own name. So we'll see what happens. But at this point, that 20-year-old is not a suspect. And until the prosecutor or police say differently, there's only one suspect at this point in this case, and that formal charge will come Thursday at 1 o'clock. Absolutely. We want to thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. We want you to continue to ask us questions. We'll monitor this feed as we get new information. We'll definitely post that on the RTV6 app here on Facebook Live and as well